All right, so you're looking at a 2007 Kia Sportage. We're doing wheel bearings on. I've already done the driver's side here. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the passenger side. Now, if you're going to do this job yourself, you're going to need a press or have a machine shop near you that can press them. Just so a little FYI, these aren't the normal bearings where you just unbolt them and bolt them in. You will need a press, access to a press, or take them somewhere. Now, if you would take the knuckle off that I show you how to take off and take it to the machine shop, you'd still save a lot of money over having a shop do all this. So it's really up to you. If you don't have a press, but you're willing to do a little bit of work, you can still save some money. Take the knuckle to the machine shop, give them the bearings, have them press them in and out, and then you come back and put it back together. You'll save some money there. Or if you have a press, obviously, you can do the whole job yourself. I have a small press, so I do it a little bit differently than some people may do it. Everyone's press is a little bit different, size-wise, and the attachments and what you have available to you. So I'm just going to show you how I do it and go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and get on the passenger side, get the wheel off, and we'll start taking this apart. And like I said, nothing else. I'll show you how to take this apart so that you are able to take it somewhere and have it pressed in and still save some money that way. So anyway, I'll get set up over there, and then we'll get this thing cranking out. All right, so the first thing you want to do is go ahead and get the brakes out of the way. So just take your calipers off, and we'll hang those out of the way. Alright, being a little stubborn. A lot of guys will just hang these by the hose, get one of these hooks or some kind of bungee cord or something, hang it from the spring up here. That way your caliper's not just hanging off by the hose. Now you got to take this bracket off. There's two 18mm, I believe they're 18mm bolts holding it in. And I'm kind of a rebel. I like to make my own rules, so I'm going to use a chrome socket on the impact and go against all the rules. Of course, the reason I'm doing that is because I lost my socket at the junkyard, I believe. I haven't got a chance to get it replaced yet. But I tend to date the party girls, and they love the bad boys that use chrome sockets on impacts, so it works out good. I like the bad boys. So go ahead and take the bracket off. That'll come right off. And then we'll go ahead and take the rotor off next. And of course, it's like the Hondas. Actually, if you've ever done wheel bearings on a Honda, this is almost a carbon copy of it. You have the screws here, which we'll use an impact screwdriver to get to, and my hammer's on the other side of the garage, so I'll pick it back up in a second here. Anyways, I was saying, these bearings, this whole setup is pretty similar to, let's get the impact screwdriver and get these out. It's pretty similar to a Honda as far as the wheel bearings and everything go. And I guess it's that time of year because I've done a bunch of these lately on Hondas, and mainly on Hondas. Just did like 3 sets the last few weeks. Well, 3.5 because I pressed out a set for my friend. So now the screws are out. Sometimes these a little hard to get off, so I'm gonna get my rubber mallet and take this rotor off real quick, and then we'll pick back up. Alright, so you pull the cotter pin off. I've already done that. Got the brake rotor off. Just takes a couple taps with a rubber mallet. I didn't want to bore you me walking over there and getting that. So that's why I stopped it. Anyway, your axle socket's 32 mil. So we'll take that off next. Now we're down to, you might have to tap your axle a little to get it. This one feels like it's pretty tight in there, so we'll put this bolt back on and give it a little tap. Get the axle to move. Once it starts moving, it usually not really hitting it as hard as it may seem like on the camera. This axle goes real deep into this knuckle here, or the spindle, and rust forms around it. And sometimes on these Kias, you got to tap them out. This one's, you know, it's moving. It's not that bad. But I think that's pretty good, pretty far. I'm going to go ahead and turn the wheel so I can get access to. Actually, we'll take this ball joint off real quick down here. And I don't know if you guys are low enough. I might have to lower you down. I'll lower you down. We'll take this ball joint off. If you're not going to change your ball joints, it'd be a good idea to either buy or rent one of these. Just a ball joint separator. And what it does is it gets in there and it pops the ball joint out without ruining the boot or the grease boot. So anyway, I'll set you up. I'm going to set you up and we'll get this out and then we'll do the tie rod and move on from there. Alright, so what's nice about these Kias is most everything under here is 17 mil. So I think all these bolts, all these nuts are 17. Let's go ahead and get the nut off. And then we're going to put this separator in there. Hopefully we'll separate this without damaging anything. Trying to do this and not get in the way of the camera. Alright. So you slide that in between your control arm and the spindle there. And basically that pushes down on the bolt. And should snap it loose. Sometimes I just tighten it a little, let it sit, because sometimes you let it sit for a second or two, it'll pop on its own. Hasn't yet. Eventually it'll just pop. Ooh, there you go. So you slide that in there, it doesn't mess up the boot, so your boot's still good. And you can pop that out without damaging anything. So now that's popped out, all we have is the tie rod and you know, the bolts to the strut up here. So I'll get you positioned over there. I'm going to go ahead and turn the steering wheel the other way so I can get the tie rod easier, and then I'll position you over here so you can see what I'm doing over here. It's all pretty straightforward, but if you haven't done or don't have much experience with it, that's what we're doing these videos for in the first place. So anyway, I'll turn the wheel back to the left, get the tie rod accessible, and we'll go from there. Alright, I went ahead and took the cotter pin off already. Oops. So another 17, and just run that off. And I'm going the wrong way. And on these here tie rods, usually you can use a tie rod separator, which I do have one. You can rent them too. But normally, if you just hit right here with a sledge or what, mini sledge or whatever, it'll pop off. Normally don't even have to hit it that much. But anyway, now we just have the spindle here, which I'm not sure if you can see. Film this. Yeah, so you got the 2 bolts here for the spindle. I believe that's 17 to get in on the one side and 19 to hold it. So we'll pull these out real quick. And then once you get that out, we should be able to pull this whole assembly out. And then we'll start the whole process of, oh, we got one more thing I forgot. We do have a ABS sensor on this side. Oh, both sides actually. So don't forget to remove that. It's 10 millimeters right here. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just get a 10 millimeter bolt socket, run it out, and then kind of work it back and forth. It'll be rusty in there a little bit. Just get something, grab a hold of it, rock it back and forth gently, and it will hopefully come out. If it doesn't, you may have to replace it, but I got lucky on the other side and it came out. So this car doesn't have too many miles. It's got like 130,000 on it, so I've been pretty lucky with rust and stuff on this car so far. So I'm going to pull that out, and then we'll pick back up, taking this off. Alright, so here's that ABS sensor. It's pretty rusty, you can see, and this one was a little hard to get out than the other one, but it did come out. So now you just gotta kind of fight the axle a little. It'll clear. It acts like it won't, but it will. Just wants to be special for a little bit. So once you get that out, pry it loose from here, and then it should pull out like this. And now we're going to take this whole thing over to the bed to start working on it, start getting the bearing out and getting the new one pressed in. Alright, first thing I do is get this retaining ring out. Now you can go ahead and get the hub out first, but I just like taking this out first. It's pretty rusty in here, so I'm going to clean it up and get some more screwdrivers. I'll be back. Alright, so I went ahead and pulled this out. I just use screwdrivers and get in there. You hook it in here and pull it up. It's pretty this whole thing's pretty rusty. And I'm pretty sure this is the one that was making all the noise on the passenger side. But, you know, I'll go ahead and buff this up before I put it back on, clean it up. We'll have to clean up inside here. Now, most people would use the press to take this hub off, because this hub is pressed in here. I don't, because I have a smaller press, and you know, you just need certain types of metal and way to set it up that I'd rather not spend all that time messing with it. I find that I can punch these out with a hammer and a punch just as fast as I could set up the press for this. I use the press to get the bearing out and to put the new bearing in, but to do the hub, and I use the press to put the hub in, but I just don't use to take it out. So here, I'll show you what I do to take this middle piece out. Now, if you have a bigger press and more tooling and stuff, there's no issue taking this out. I just don't have anything that I could jack this up high enough with on my press to press that out. So I've found that it's no issue at all just to take a driver and drive it out, and then we'll press this bearing out. Now, you don't need to remove this to remove the hub. I just do that first for some reason, but you will need to remove that to actually remove the bearing. And I use a combination of tools on that, but I'll show you all that, how I do it. Like I said, everyone's press is different. Everyone has different tooling and different ways of doing this, but it's all pretty straightforward. I use with this particular bearing, I use a combination of ball joint tools and the press to press it out, and then to press it in, I do just something else. But I'll show you that in a little bit. So I'll show you how to get this out real quick, and then we'll start pressing this bearing out. All right, so here's what I do on these. Might be a little bit redneck, but it works. I got 2 blocks of wood here. You find the right size driver that'll fit into the hub. You don't want it to be bigger than the hub, because then you'll be hitting on the bearing, and this is upside down, so the bearing's never going to move anyway because it's got a catch on the other side. So you find the right size driver, socket, driver, whatever you have that'll fit into the hub and drive it out. Now, full disclosure, I've already hit this a couple times, so it's about ready to come out. These aren't that hard to get out. Like I said, if you have a different kind of press, no problem. My press is small, and I've always found it's a pain in the butt to get these out with the press. My size press. Now the bigger ones it's easy, but anyway, just get your driver set up, get it on there, and then beat it out. Like I said, this one's gonna fall right out because I already beat on it a little bit. But once they start to go, they go quick. So that's it. So this is your hub right here. Now this is part of the race right here. We're gonna have to cut this off. What we do is we cut a slot to relieve the pressure, and then we get a wedge in there and pop it off. You gotta be careful when you do this because I don't want to get ahead of myself here. We're gonna do this in a second, but when you do this, you don't want to cut into the actual hub itself. You want to just cut enough of relief out of this. This is all scored up. Well, maybe not. You want to cut enough relief out of here to so that it releases its grip on this hub. It's pressed on there basically. So anyway, we'll just go ahead and do that next before we press the hub out. So I'll go ahead and I'll show you. I use a cutoff wheel, and I just cut at an angle until there's a pretty good groove in here. Then you should be able to just beat it off. So we'll go ahead and I'll show you how I set that up, and then we'll do this bearing next, and then get this thing back together. All right. So of course, like I said earlier, I'm kind of a rebel or a bad boy, so I use my cutoff wheel without a shield on it. But I do use safety glasses. So all you're going to do is come in at an angle and try to cut a relief out of that, big enough to where you can just get it off without damaging the hub. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. You just want to kind of slowly cut into this and avoid cutting into your hub. So the air compressor's on. You kind of see what I'm doing. I'm at an angle. I'm just going to keep cutting this until I'm close to this hub, and then I'll use a wedge and get in here and separate it. But I'm going to go ahead. There's no point in you watching this and listening to that air compressor at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and keep cutting this. It won't take too long until it's pretty thin, and then we'll go ahead and knock it off. So I'll pick back up after this air compressor shuts off, and we're almost done. Alright, so I got a deep enough groove in it. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. Got a deep enough groove where you're not all the way through hitting the hub, but you're taking, the tension off of this. And then you just stick a, let me find it. I use one of these. Just kind of get in between the hub and this and just kind of beat down on it, and it'll eventually slide out once you get enough of this relieved, pressure relieved. So we'll go ahead and buff this off, and this is ready to go back on after we buff it off. And then now we'll go about removing the bearing. I've already started on it while I was waiting for the compressor to die down, so I'll kind of show you what I got set up over there. Alright, so I got this set up. What I'm using here is a ball joint tool and the ball joint cup, and then I'm just pressing down on it. I'm about halfway out, so that's what I use. You flip it over after you get that ring out, find something to fit in there that will touch the outer side of the bearing, and which I found these. This is not, if you have like a regular ball joint tool remover, this probably won't be in there. This is part of the extended kit that a lot of people sell. So anyway, this is one of the extended cups, and but anything you can find that's wide enough to fit in there and gets at the end of that race will work. So this one's almost all the way out. It's almost flush with the bottom, and actually the bearing's already popped out. They're right here. So those will usually pop out on these before the actual race will. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and finish pressing this down, and then we'll flip it over, clean it up, and start putting the new one in. Alright, so this is what you should have after you've had it pressed out, if you pressed it out yourself. this is basically what you're going to be pressing against. And like I said, on mine, ball joint sleeve is what I found works. So now just go ahead and clean up inside here real good. I use a wire brush on an angle grinder. And clean all up this real good. And this is where your axle goes. And then down in here, maybe use something softer to clean that up. And then put a little lube in there. And then we'll start pressing that new bearing in. Alright, so you just flip it upside down and then get a driver. It's about the same size as the bearing you're pressing in. And then you just press it down until it bottoms out. There's a lip on the underside of this spindle that catches the bearing. So once you get it pressed in and it stops going, you can stop right there. You can't go any farther. There's actually a lip here that catches it. So, yeah, just flip it over. Find something that's the same size as the bearing, drive it down with the press, and then we'll put that retaining ring in, the hub back on. Alright, so get the hub back in. You put the hub upside down, put your spindle over it, line it up straight, and then just get something. I used the same driver that did before, but they got that ring in there now, so I'm not pressing on the bearing itself. And you just press it down. Anyway, you just keep pressing that down until it's flush, and it won't go any farther. No, you don't have to keep, don't keep cranking on it. Once it's flush and won't go any farther, that's good enough. Pull it off, and then you should be ready to install it back. Just double check it, make sure it spins freely. And now I did clean this hub up with the buff wheel, and I also lubed it up with some, with some grease, so to make it go a little easier. So anyway, that's how I do it. Like I said, everyone has different presses and different machining and stuff, but I found this the easiest way for me to do these type of bearings. So I'm going to go ahead and finish pressing this down, and then we'll put it back on the car and get it. I'm actually waiting. She wants sway links replaced on it. They're pretty loose, so I'm still waiting for those. But anyway, we'll get this wheel bearing stuff back together. Alright, so we're on the home stretch with this. You should have your hub all done and ready to go. So get it kind of started with the axle a little bit. Put it into the bottom ball joint. And everything will try to fight you for a few seconds. And there you go. So the axle slid in, the ball joint's in the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and before I do anything, start these two bolts so that everything's kind of where it's supposed to be. And then we'll start hitting everything else. I guess my sway links aren't going to come in time. Sucks. All I'm doing is just putting these strip bolts back in, and we'll go ahead and tighten them. And my impact, let me impact this here. My hose on the other side of the garage where I was grinding, so I'll pick back up here in a second. Alright, so anyway, we'll just go ahead and tighten these down. 17 and 19. And it would help if I was going the right way. In case you're wondering, I'm not sponsored by Harbor Freight or anything, but this Earthquake XC Stubby is a awesome impact for suspension work and just about everything, really. Pretty much use it every day. So I'm going to go ahead and start the axle nut. I'm not going to do the final torque on it. I'm just going to get it ran down and started a little bit. We'll do the final torque on it once we get it back on the ground, or get the spec for it and torque it up. And then you got to put the bolt in on the bottom here for the ball joint. That's 17. cotter pin, ball joint for the tie rod, cotter pin, and then we'll put the brakes on. So that's pretty much the gist. I'm going to go ahead and get the socket for this and get it started, and then we'll put the rest of it together. Alright, I already went ahead and put the 17 millimeter nut and cotter pin on the ball joint and on the tie rod. They're both 17 mil. Use cotter pin. I'm going to put this bracket back on. Of course, I've already put the rotor on, the 2 screws. Just kind of got to go through this kind of fast since we already took it apart, so you know how to put it back together. There's nothing really tricky about putting it back together once you get everything lined up and back on. The axle nut is 221 foot-pounds of torque. So if you don't, I use a pry bar and a torque wrench. If you don't have a pry bar to hold the lugs, just get it tight and then put it down on the ground and let the car hold it, or have someone hold the brake. And while you torque it, and then don't forget to put the cotter pin back in on the axle nut after you torque it down. 221 foot-pounds of torque. So they don't want that going nowhere. And you do have an ABS sensor you got to put in. You just slide that back in. It's 10 millimeter bolt, and slide your caliper back on, and that's it. It's pretty much. I'll go ahead and tighten that up and tighten down my axle nut and put the wheel back on. It's ready to go. Like I said before, I'm waiting for the sway link, so I probably won't. That's a whole other different thing though. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully you learned how to at least get this off maybe and take it to the machine shop if you don't have a press. If you have a press, you probably press these out before, so you know, you might have your own way of doing it. So anyway, that's pretty much it for wheel bearings on a 2007 Kia Sportage. I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, opposite. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. God bless. Have a good day. Thanks.